Okay, coming up, we want to be able to create and update beer objects using the API. And to do this, we actually need to create a JSON string that we are going to be passing into mock MVC. So there's a couple different ways that we can create JSON. Obviously, we could handwrite it. That's not much fun, though. An easier way is to use JSON to create the JSON for us. So I'm going to create a stub here of a test. I'm not going to do this test just yet, but we're going to get the inner workings going. I want to do a video specifically on using JSON. So JSON has what's called an object mapper. And this is what we can use to serialize and deserialize data from JSON. So we can take Java POJOs to JSON and JSON back to Java POJOs. And so it's a very versatile tool. We will be touching on it more in the class, but here we're just going to get our feet wet with it. And for this, we're going to want to take a beer object, and we'll go ahead and use our beer service impl, list beers, and we'll just get the first one off the list, because we know that we have 3 there. And to go ahead and do this, what we can do, I'm just going to do a system out on this. I'm going to show you 2 different ways. First, I'm going to show you the less preferred way, let's say. So here we can say object matter, write value as string. We'll pass it in the beer entity. And you can see that we're getting a warning here. This is going to throw an exception if something goes wrong. So we're just going to go ahead and add that to the test signature. Now, expect this is going to fail for us. And the failure is actually pretty simple reason. So you can see here, invalid definition. So Java 8 date time not supported by default. So JSON has what's called modules. So we do need to do some configuration on the object mapper and find and register modules. So this tells JSON, the JSON object mapper, to go out on the class path and find different modules. And one of the modules is to handle the date time type. So let's go ahead and run this, and we can see this will run properly now that we are getting the outputted value. So you can see this is the JSON representation of our beer object, and maybe not the best date format that we want. And there's a number of configuration options for JSON itself. And when I'm working with Spring Boot tests, what I prefer to do is to use the object mapper that's been created by Spring Boot. And a couple different reasons for this. One, it's going to test your configuration. Spring Boot does have, like everything else, it does have sensible defaults that it's going to be setting up. And the web context actually has a object mapper in it. So what we can do is we can modify this. Let's update our test, say object mapper, like so, and we'll ask Spring to provide it. And by auto-wiring the object mapper in, we're going to get the exact same one being provided by Spring Boot. So we're going to get Spring Boot's defaults, and as we get into more advanced configuration, there are overrides that we can do in a Spring Boot context. So now our test and our controllers are going to be using the same configuration. We don't have to do it in 2 places. So what I can do is get rid of this creation of an object mapper and utilize the one that's being configured by Spring Boot. So let's go ahead and run this again, and we'll see that this does output properly. So now we can see here a couple differences here. The biggest difference, remember, I don't know if you saw previously, the other one, we are now getting a nicely formatted date. So I don't know the exact configuration that Spring Boot is applying to the object mapper, but obviously the date time format is one of them where we are getting a nicely formatted date. But the main takeaway that I want you to have is that Spring Boot is auto-configuring a object mapper for the use within the Spring context. And now we want to use that same configuration. What I've seen people try to create an object mapper within the test and then one within Spring Boot itself, and they can conflict and not work happily together. And then you're also maintaining 2 different configurations. Ideally, you should be able to maintain one configuration and get the same result. So again, what we're doing in this video is we are asking the Spring Boot context to bring in the object mapper that has been configured with sensible defaults like everything else in Spring Boot. So we're auto-wiring that in, and then we are utilizing that object mapper to produce JSON. In the next video, we'll take that JSON and use it to create a new beer with our controller.